April.
Kenny.
Take it away. We're watching movies.
Welcome, everybody, to Watching Movies.
With Kenny and April.
And I'm April.
And I'm April.
And Kenny doesn't exist. And this is no longer April and Kenny.
This is April.
Welcome. Welcome to Watching Movies. No. Okay, so we watched The Princess Bride.
Classic.
One of the best movies ever made. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
S+. 10 out of 10. If there were more numbers, I'd give them more.
There could be more numbers.
It's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
There are questions that I have.
Oh, okay.
I actually introduced this, and maybe we'll tease this at the beginning and come back to it at the end. But my question is, for someone who's never seen this movie before, in 2023, the year of our Lord, and they watched it, what are they giving it? And does that mean that we should adjust the scale a little bit? How much of this is nostalgia talking? Now, you can hold off on that.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to sing the praises of this movie
right.
for the next 30 minutes to 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Roughly. That's safe to say.
I'll let you know at the end
if you think it holds up.
How I think somebody else would rate this movie.
Okay. I also thought about this. Okay, great. So, continue, please.
Okay, so The Princess Bride came out in the year 1987. I did write down the runtime, 1 hour, 38 minutes. An excellent runtime, in my opinion.
Very good runtime.
Pretty much ideal. 90-minute movies. We will always advocate for a 90-minute movie.
This is a little bit longer than that, actually. I'm surprised it wasn't exactly 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that it's a fairly short movie, and it just moves along.
Bam, bam, bam.
Never feels like it's dragging. It's just always doing its thing.
No, and we talk about that while we watch the movie. We talk about how it just keeps going and pushing, and it takes out the extra and just gives us what you need.
The abridged version, you might say.
Yes. So that's good. Our director is Rob Reiner.
We've encountered Rob Reiner before, actually.
Yes. So I wrote down a couple of things. I see you did too. When Harry Met Sally, he was a producer on that. Mm-hmm. He was a producer on Misery, which is interesting.
Didn't see that one.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I see you wrote down a couple more.
Stand By Me, which is a movie I have not watched, but by all accounts is a great little flick. I don't know if you've watched that one.
Nope, never seen it.
It's good. Based on a short story by Stephen King. Mm-hmm. Stephen King's short stories that are turned into movies are generally better than his books that are turned into movies.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that. A Few Good Men. He's involved in that. He appeared in Sleepless in Seattle. I don't know if you remember that.
Did he?
He was like one of the friends that Tom Hanks talks to in like a bar or something.
Yeah, I think I remember that. He was also an actor on New Girl.
Right.
He was Jess's dad on New Girl, actually, which is interesting.
Yeah, he's still doing stuff. He's still appearing in things.
He's just kind of here and there.
Yeah. But he was an absolute powerhouse in the 80s and 90s, this guy was. One extra detail I found about him in my limited research is that he was gifted the book that The Princess Bride is based on by his father and fell in love with the book and was like, I gotta make this into a screenplay. I gotta make this into a movie. Which I think is extra cool, especially given the framing device that surrounds the movie.
Yeah.
It kind of falls into that same pattern.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's fun. And also I guess this movie was in development hell for quite a while. So
yes, that's
for
true.
it to end up in his hands is pretty nice.
It's very cool. The author of the book, William Goldman, he got paid well early on for selling the rights to it. He got paid $500,000, which, we love that.
Good for you.
Love an author getting paid. I didn't realize it was in development hell.
Yeah, I guess a couple of people wanted to take it on, and then immediately it was axed,
kind of
basically.
bailed on it.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. This feels like the kind of movie, it's a classic now, but I understand why people wouldn't want to make this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of a hard pitch.
Yeah.
And it's very unique, which I think makes it hard to sell as
the story and a story thing might have been...
That's difficult.
Yeah.
The locations at the time made it difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just the general vibes were probably tricky. So
yeah,
I understand why this was hard to get made. Cast.
So we have Cary Elwes as our Wesley. I wrote down a few things that he has been in. He was in a Saw movie.
Saw.
Yeah. Yes. He was in Liar.
As the rival.
The nice guy that gets fucked over, basically.
Right.
Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Hood.
Yes. He has, clearly some comedic chops, which continue through there.
And also, apparently, he was a voice on, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Porco Rosso, which is a Studio Ghibli movie. He was an English
I think he's done a few English dubs for Studio Ghibli. Because I swear I've picked up on him a few times in watching movies with the dubs.
I just thought that was interesting because we have watched Porco Rosso in my household and we liked it, so I thought that was a fun little...
Well, I'll have to look up afterwards because I'm pretty positive he's done other voices. Maybe like... I feel like one of the Cat and the Mayor movies.
I don't know.
I'll look it up later.
Interesting.
I also remember him from our childhood in Ella Enchanted.
Yes, he was in Ella Enchanted.
As the villain.
He was a dickhead in that movie.
Which I think
a fun little bit for him.
He kind of enjoyed after being the storybook hero, princely, vagabond Wesley. He enjoyed playing villains
to be the villain.
After this. Yeah. Which you see a few times. Robin Wright as Buttercup. Mm-hmm. At the time, hadn't really been in much of anything.
Yeah.
She's pretty well known now.
She had a huge part on House of Cards.
Yes, she was Kevin Spacey's wife.
Yeah, so, she's still working.
Yeah, and she was also, as we discussed in the commentary track, in Forrest Gump.
Oh, yeah. Boo!
Maybe a later date we will cover that.
Oh God, I hope not.
Mandy Patinkin as Inigo.
Yes.
Did you find out anything about Mandy Patinkin?
No, I wrote Mandy Patinkin parentheses TikTok because he's on TikTok now. That's
great.
That's what I got of Mandy Patinkin. Oh, he was also in a commercial for some medication or something.
That's right.
I vaguely remember that.
Yes, he was. I won't say anything more about him because I had rumors that I have spread on the commentary.
So you were
track.
wrong? You didn't see any proof of that?
I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, well, Mandy Patinkin.
Mandy's in the clear.
For now.
As far as I'm concerned. André the Giant as Fezzik.
Yeah.
I was very interested to read the list of other potential stars they were looking at to play
saw a couple.
Fezzik.
Yeah.
The most interesting ones to me were Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was not known really at the time, and I think would have been perfectly fine in the role. Basically the same kind of deal. Yeah. Especially if he had not been in anything else, I think it would have been totally acceptable.
Right. I think it said, by the time that this got going, he was too big to, get him as a...
But if they had nabbed him earlier, and this was his first thing...
Right.
It would have worked just fine, I think. I also saw that Liam Neeson auditioned for the role of Fezzik.
And they were like, what? You're 6'4".
Right. You're not a giant at all.
You're normal looking.
Which in the modern day, they could obviously do some trickery to really make you look huge. I mean, Peter Dinklage starred as a dwarf, quotation marks, but a giant in Infinity War. With
really?
Well, remember when Thor goes to get the axe reforged?
Vaguely. Oh, yeah.
And he's like a giant being.
Gotcha.
So, you could do some nonsense.
Right.
But at the time, I don't know what he was really hoping for there.
Yeah. You need a real giant.
Yeah.
Although, André the Giant had significant back problems at the time, so they had to work around that.
Which is interesting because if you watch the movie and you see André the Giant, he's clearly kind of lumbering around. I just always assumed he's just a huge guy. Yeah. I didn't realize that, he was battling through an injury
medical
the
issues.
entire time.
Yeah.
And I was looking up some trivia where when he catches Buttercup at the end, this like 90-pound woman, she's being supported.
She had wires, yeah.
And also when Wesley is choking him out, Wesley is
they had like a ramp
is
or
standing on a ramp,
something.
so he's never being supported on his back.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is fine because I didn't notice that either of those, really.
He's just a massive guy.
Yeah, he's just huge. Mostly what you see is, like, his head next to somebody else's head.
Or his hand, which is massive.
And you're like, holy shit, literally, he is a giant. That is a giant dude. Man.
Yeah.
Chris Sarandon as Prince Humperdinck.
Yeah.
The only note I took about him was that he was the voice of Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which I had no idea.
I wrote Chris Sarandon... first parentheses, then nothing.
You didn't have any extra notes about him. He's pretty perfect for this role. I do feel bad for guys like this because I mentioned the commentary. He just has a face you want to punch.
Yeah, real punchable guy.
Yeah. He's perfect for the role. He does an amazing job. I feel bad that he was born to be hated, basically. So I'm glad that he was the voice of Jack Skellington because that's a very lovable character.
Positive character.
Great. And I'm glad I know that now. The only other one I took a note of was Wallace Shawn as Vizzini, and in the commentary I mentioned this as well. He's the voice of Rex from Toy Story.
It looks like he's much more of a voice actor than very much anything else.
Which, once you hear his voice, you're like, I see why he's a voice actor.
Yeah.
It's very distinctive, and he can do a lot with it.
I did see that they were also looking at Danny DeVito for that part.
Which I think would have worked perfectly well.
And that Wallace Shawn was very... unconfident about his abilities, so he was like visibly sweating, like with stress about the part,
which kind of works for the character, funnily enough.
But he was really great as that character.
Yeah, I mean, now I think most people who see him would, if you recognize him by sight, you would identify him with this role.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
I also wrote down Christopher Guest,
right,
who is
Tyrone.
He directed, I don't know if you've ever seen this, Best in Show. He's like a mockumentary guy. Okay. And Best in Show is like a mockumentary about dog shows.
Gotcha.
Which is like pretty popular with a certain subgroup of people. I've seen it. It's a funny movie, but yeah. He's more popular with like mockumentaries and stuff. He was also involved with This Is Spinal Tap, which Rob Reiner was. Of stuff about so there's a lot of overlap between the cast, the crew, the production staff between This Is Spinal Tap and this movie. Seems like This Is Spinal Tap is what kind of put Rob Reiner on the map, and then he could get other things going. Yeah, and brought the people that he liked working with along on this project, which is something you kind of see a fair amount. Yeah, like, definitely. There's some, especially keep hiring the people you like. There are some directors, especially, who it's like, I mean, Christopher Nolan is a good example of like he just likes working with the same people again and again. Martin Scorsese likes working with the same people again and again. All right, April's favorite part: tagline time. So you want to hear the legit taglines? We should do our own taglines first, right? You want to go first? I had a few different ones. So my tagline, my official one, is definitive, swashbuckling romance. Mm-hmm. I think that's what this movie really does well. And then I had a few different ones. This is from our commentary. Fencing, fighting, fucking. Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no actual fucking in the movie, but you get the idea. There should be. But I think there's also if I had to propose a real tagline for the movie, I would have modified a line from the movie and done something like fencing, fighting, monsters, true love, miracles. Okay. I think it encapsulates what the movie's about, is intriguing. I want to know more, so I like that. I like that too, and honestly, it's kind of close to the real tagline. Interesting. My tagline was just, I mean, come on, this is like the best goddamn movie ever. That's my whole tagline. But the real taglines got real wordy. They're super long. And there's like 3 or 4 of them. Okay, let's hear them. The story of a man and a woman who lived happily ever after, even though the courtship almost killed them. It's just a description. That's too much. It's just too much. It's as real as the feelings you feel. Ugh. I like the wordy one more. Okay. Heroes, giants, villains, wizards, true love. And then, in addition to that, not just your basic, average, everyday, run-of-the-mill, ho-hum fairy tale.
So that's one thing?
Yeah, so, like, one of the taglines was just the first part, and then the next tagline was the first part and the second part.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
That sucks, too.
So that's the one that's close.
Yes.
The abbreviated version is close to the one I proposed.
And then, scaling the cliffs of insanity, battling rodents of unusual size, facing torture in the pit of despair. True love has never been a snap.
God.
I don't know why.
A snap.
A snap. There's nothing to do with snaps in the movie.
Thanos does not appear.
There's nothing related to that whatsoever.
Weird.
Very interesting.
I mean, it follows the overall trend that taglines of movies are not that good.
Yeah.
I think I don't know, it's so weird. Just like this, we'll talk about it, but this movie has such a brilliant script. Like, why don't you hire somebody who wrote this script to write a good tagline?
Yeah.
Why does the tagline suck so bad?
Or if you have to do a tagline, it should be like 3 words.
It should be quick.
Tops.
I mean, it's a tagline.
Yeah.
Like, that first one you read is like 2 full sentences.
Yeah, it is.
That's insane.
And it gives away the movie, basically.
Awful. Okay, don't understand that.
Okay.
So, we can move into the actual movie proper itself. Do you want to just jump into the plot?
Sure. So we start out...
Beep, 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 beep.
Yes, so we have this little sick boy playing a video game, and his grandpa walks in, and he's like, let's read a book instead. And the kid's like, fuck you, Grandpa. Okay, fine.
Which immediately, if you are not familiar with the movie at all... Well, I guess either way. If you're not familiar with the movie at all, you're probably like, how the Princess Bride?
Yeah.
And this is how it's starting?
Modern times.
And then if you even, like, you haven't seen it, but you know about it, you know the general idea. When it starts this way, you're like...
It really throws you off.
What?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're thrown into sick kid playing video games. Grandpa comes over and says, hey, let's read a book, sonny.
Yeah, so the kid is kind of reluctant because, like, what kind of fucking nerd reads a book, am I right? But Grandpa starts reading, and we go right into Wesley and Buttercup, basically.
That's right.
Growing up on the farm together, or living on the farm together, and he's taking care of her, and they're both really fucking hot, you know.
That's the big thing to take away here.
Immediate.
There's a lot of smolder
tension going on.
Oh yeah.
You know, give me that vase.
Oh yeah. There's a lot.
As you wish, baby. Like.
Yeah.
It's very sexy, and then very quickly you come back out of it, and the kid's like, "What the fuck is this, Grandpa?" Like,
totally.
This sexy, smoldery tension stuff. What's going on?
And why are you reading this to me?
They're on the first page of the book.
Yeah. I mean, which makes sense because literally he's said like 80 words at this point. So yeah, I mentioned in the commentary, I think it's pretty fun that I watched this when I was a young kid, and my parents were like, this is a great movie. Like, they're like pitching it to me. We're finally ready to share this with you, Kenneth. You're going to watch The Princess Bride with us.
Do you remember the first time you watched
it?
You do?
I do. Because I remember the name. The name stood out to me as like, am I going to like this?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this movie? And then it starts out and you get the... And I'm like, okay. And then it turns into a kissing movie. And right when I, as a kid, am like...
I'm done.
What is this? The kid goes, hold it. What is this book you're reading? And so
What's the smut, Grandpa? You're reading me porn.
It's a great bridge. It's good as an adult. It's fun. But as a kid, you're also like, yeah, Fred Savage. Totally.
He's right.
He's so right, actually. The framing device is pretty light in the movie. It appears periodically.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 times.
It reminds you it's there, and it plays, I think, an important role in the movie. But it's just totally a movie about the characters in the book.
Yeah.
If the movie had just been done without the framing device completely, I think it still would have held up completely. Mm-hmm. Doesn't need the framing device. I think the framing device...
It adds to it.
It elevates it. And it's something that you remember past a normal story. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So Grandpa says, all right, I get it. You're
Chill
sick.
out.
I'll humor you. He sailed away and got murdered.
Yeah.
And then we, again, very quickly, we're moving things right along.
It's so fast. It moves so fast. She's like very quickly. She's with Prince Humperdinck. Now she's going to be a princess. It's basically like bam, bam, bam.
Yes. We're told a little bit here from Grandpa being the narrator. The law of the land gives the prince the right to choose his bride. He chooses her. Mm-hmm. And doesn't love him. We're told that right away as well. But, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's the law of the land. And then she gets kidnapped.
Yeah, that also happens so quickly.
Yeah, basically in the same breath.
Yeah.
She gets kidnapped by...
these 3 guys.
Yeah. Vicini.
Uh-huh.
Inigo.
Inigo and Fezzik.
So we've got, like, a diminutive strategist guy, a Spaniard who is a fencer, and Fezzik who is a large
muscle.
man. Yeah, exactly.
The muscle, yeah.
And they kidnap her, and we also learn of their plan relatively quickly. They're going to take her to an enemy of the state that she comes from, leave her kill her, and frame this other country. And we're not told that they're being paid to start a war, but they're trying to start a war. Vicini says something along the lines of, like, this is a long and storied tradition of starting wars between countries. So that they're trying to do that, we don't really know why.
You also get a really quick setup of, like, Vicini's in charge. The other 2 are kind of bumbling, like, they're just following orders, like...
And he's also bullying them in a way. And, like, he's like, I'm paying you because no one else will.
Yeah.
You're kind of the bottom of the barrel.
You were lost without me, and you'll be lost again. Like,
right.
I'm in charge. And they're sailing along, taking Buttercup away. And Vicini's like, nobody could be following us. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. And then you get the shot of the ship behind them. And
I just looked behind us
and
and
it goes
saw
like,
something
there's the guy over there. I don't know.
Yeah, so... this movie has something that we love in movies is quick characterization. We quickly understand what these characters are about. Vicini thinks he's the smartest guy ever and is kind of incompetent in his own way. We've got Fezzik, who is, I think, just kind of the prototypical gentle giant is the way he's presented. And he has some, like, basically, they just give him some kind of character quirks. He's a nice enough guy, and he loves rhyming.
Yeah. He's just chilling,
he's just living his best life.
Just following orders, looking for a purpose of some sort.
And Inigo, we get a sense of him initially, but he actually is the side character that gets the most development.
Yeah.
Which happens in the next scene.
Right. You get his backstory and why he is where he is, basically.
Right. So they're sailing away. They're being followed by someone. We don't know who yet.
Yeah.
They get to the Cliffs of Insanity, which I took note of this because I was like, where was this shot? All in England.
I did see it was mostly in England.
And a little bit in Ireland. And the Cliffs of Insanity are the Cliffs of Moher, which I looked at some drone footage of. Incredible. I see why you would choose this to be a movie location because it looks so cool. And I know I've definitely seen other movies that have used this location in the past. And you'll recognize it probably instantly if you see it. It's very picturesque. So yeah, basically all of the shooting took place in England, including the framing device stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that also took place in
Not
Surrey.
necessarily, but...
I'm sure it happened because the crew was already there. So they're just like, let's just... hit this out real quick. Yeah, exactly.
Couple days.
It's a tiny little set that they're on. They don't have that many lines.
Yeah.
So that makes sense as well, I suppose. Although they could have done that anywhere, really. So yeah, they make it to the cliffs. They're climbing up the rope.
Fezzik is taking the other 3 up, and
that's his role in this plan.
Vicini is saying, nobody can follow us. That's inconceivable. And then you get the man in black behind them climbing up the rope too.
Yep. Great shots here of the cliff. Some of it is matte painting that looks really good. Some of it is just the cliffside that they got footage on, which looks amazing.
Yeah.
And some of it is matte painting that doesn't look the best, I feel like. Especially when they're looking down, you can really tell it kind of ends. But for me, personally, it's not enough to take me out. Yeah. But then again, I grew up with it, so...
Right.
I mean, how can I say that?
I didn't make any note of it either, but, I'm fucking stupid. So.
You're not stupid. I think we grew up with the movie. And so, like...
We got blinders on a little
bit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's fair.
And so... They climb up to the top. They cut the rope, presumably, to try to kill the man in black, but he holds on.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're going to run ahead. Vicini's like, we're going to run ahead with the princess. Indigo, stay here. Kill this guy. That's your job.
Yeah.
And we learn quickly that he's very, rightly so, egotistical about his sword play. And he's eager for a fight.
Yeah. This is, again, where we get some fun little quippy, like, hey, man, like, can you... hurry it up a little bit. And then the man in black is like, I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of hard. Could you throw me a rope or something?
Well, he's like, yeah, I could throw you a rope.
Right.
But I'm only waiting here to kill you once you get up. And he's like,
that's fair.
That makes it rough. Yeah. They're very cordial to each other. And I was looking up the description of this movie, and a word I brought up multiple times was this idea of swashbuckling. Mm-hmm. Which is, I found a definition for that I really, really loved. And let me see if I can find it real quick. Did I take a note of it?
Swashbuckling.
So the quick definition I have here is... Oh, this is the one I was thinking of. This is from Wikipedia. A swashbuckler is a genre of European adventure literature that focuses on a heroic protagonist stock character who is skilled in swordsmanship, acrobatics, guile, and possesses chivalrous ideals.
Yeah.
And I was like, bingo.
Great description.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the chivalrous ideals, because both the Man in Black and Inigo have that in common.
Yeah.
They're both, like, fighting for this goal.
Yeah.
And, of course, we don't know who the Man in Black is yet. We
do.
But you've got Wesley, the Man in Black, fighting for his true love, and you've got Inigo fighting for revenge and for the honor of his father and for his love of his father. And they're both very witty and very fun and very, very skilled in swordsmanship and acrobatics. Mm-hmm. So, great. Love it.
So in this scene, sick-ass fucking sword fight.
The greatest sword fight of all time.
By the two of them. And it's all real choreography. In fact, like, the only part that, this is what I read, the only part that was, like, a stunt double was the flip by Wesley. Yeah. But otherwise, they did all of the rest of it themselves.
Yeah.
And I also read that, at first, the scene was, like, a minute long. And Rob Reiner saw it and was like, nah, I need more than that. Like... bump up the choreo. So they did a full 3+ minutes of this fight scene, which I think is a good call.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
It's so fun.
It's so fun, and it sells you on these characters being so good, which is important for both of them, that you understand how skilled both of these characters are.
Yeah.
Also, I was reading they both trained for something like a month learning swordsmanship. They also, under the tutelage of the swords masters, they learned each other's movesets so they could anticipate it better. And as I pointed out, this is the first time I really thought about this watching it, was that a famous turn is that Inigo says, I'm going to fight him left-handed because I'm just too good.
Yeah.
And then halfway through, he's getting beaten, and he's like, left-handed. I'm not left-handed. And then Wesley makes the same switch and says, I'm not left-handed either. And so they're both fighting left-handed with their non-dominant hand for half the fight. They're really doing the choreography with their non-dominant hand, which sounds so hard. Uh-huh. Incredibly hard.
Yeah. Especially for newbies, too. You
made a great observation during this fight scene, too, where in modern fight scenes, it's kind of dimly lit and quick cuts.
You see movements and stuff, but not actually.
This movie shows you everything.
Yep.
You don't have to read the Wikipedia page to know it's these two guys fighting, because they're like, check it out.
Right.
These two guys are fighting. And it's a great fight scene. One of my favorites of all time.
We also mentioned that, they talk about these fencing terms, but, we weren't sure if they were actual fencing terms. But they all relate back to actual fencing terms, from what I read, so.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I wouldn't care if he made it up.
Right.
I think that would be funny, too. But I like that there was the research put in. Mm-hmm. If you're going to study your enemy is a gleeper.
So Wesley ends that fight, doesn't kill Inigo, bops him over the head.
With the sword of knocking out.
The sword of knocking out, yes, which is going to be a new D&D
magic
tool,
item.
Yeah. And then he moves on, and he goes to find Fezzik, and then we have another little fight there.
This whole part is like a very fairy tale part where it's like the hero facing 3 different foes on his journey to get to the princess.
Each boss until you get to the big boss.
Right, 3 different tests of his skills. First it's swords, and then it's strength, and then it's brains.
Yeah.
So he fights Fezzik. I have to say, I definitely, at some point in my life, looked up the lines that Fezzik, André the Giant, is saying. Because as a kid growing up with the VHS...
Couldn't tell what he was saying.
Sometimes I didn't know what he was saying.
A little garbled.
So that's... But to me, obviously, it's part of the charm of the movie. In the same way that if you watch an old Arnold movie, which is why I'm like, that kind of makes sense as a choice, as part of the charm is the way he pronounces things.
Yeah.
But I also get that if you're a brand new person coming to the movie, that might be a sticking point. It's like, I don't know who this guy is, first of all, and I can't understand a fucking thing he's saying. Especially because part of his character is he likes to do rhymes. And sometimes you can't tell what he's saying to rhyme with something. Like, I remember as a kid realizing when he finds Inigo, this is a little bit further, finds drunken Inigo, and Inigo says, "I'm waiting for Vicini." It took me a long time to realize he says, "You surely are a meanie," as he picks him up. Because it's a weird line to say in general. You can't see his mouth. And it's like, okay, like... I like this.
Some nonsense.
I like the script, but yeah, it's kind of being blocked a little bit by the pronunciation.
That's all right, though.
It's okay.
They have their little fight. It doesn't last very long, you know?
No.
He throws a boulder. They fight like men with no swords or boulders.
Yeah, there's tons of great lines. Everywhere you look, there's great lines where Wesley says, you know, you put down your rock, I put down my sword, and we'll kill each other like civilized people, which is already a funny line.
Yeah.
And then a great line at the very end where he eventually chokes Fezzik out. He lands on the ground. He's like, "I don't envy you the headache you'll have when you awaken. But in the meantime, rest well and dream of large women." Which again is kind of reinforcing the point that this man in black, who we, the audience, we know it's Wesley. He's a good guy.
He's not a villain.
Right.
He's not trying to
Didn't kill Inigo.
Yeah.
And he's wishing the best.
Wishing him well.
To Fezzik as he goes on his way.
Yeah.
The only person he kills is Vicini.
He just killed Vicini.
But Vicini is an asshole.
Yeah.
He's the only one who's a dickhead. He's the one who's been commanding these guys to kill.
And he's overconfident, and that's what gets him.
That is what gets him. So yeah, the Battle of Wits. Iconic scene.
So cool.
So
fun.
Very good scene. I challenged you, and I challenge you also, listener. Has there ever been another scene like this in movie history? A Battle of Wits where it's just 2 people trying to outthink each other. And of course, there are lots and lots of movies and shows and things where people are doing some sort of mental battle, like trying to defeat each other with strategy. That exists all over the place. But literally a scene where nothing physical is happening, really. Just sitting down and trying to outthink each other with their minds.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty sparse out there. The closest things I could think of, there's the British Sherlock in the first episode, where it's Sherlock and the serial killer sitting across from each other. That kind of fits the same mold. And there was one other one I thought of. It's gone. But I think it's pretty rare. My overall point is 100%. That this doesn't happen that often. And especially, you have to make it satisfying, whatever the resolution is. Like, I love that this starts with, "I challenge you to a battle of wits." Like, that's a bold statement to go in with. And the fact that they deliver on it and he wins in a way that you're like, oh my god, he just outfoxed him completely.
It makes me think of, like, mythology more.
Yeah.
Of, like, hey, like, but that's more like intelligence versus strength most of the time. Like, one person is thinking, one person is, like, brute strength kind of vibe.
And you overcome them with your mind.
Right.
As opposed to, I think my brain is better than yours.
Right.
Which is what Wesley does.
Yeah.
with the iocane powder.
He kind of gets him over with strength because he built up his resistance to iocane powder. Granted, the move there was, I know what's going on, you don't know what's going on, kind of thing.
I've presented this setup to you in a way where I've concealed the truth of what's really happening.
Right.
You never considered the possibility that they're both poison.
Right.
And this doesn't matter to me personally. Like, I don't care what you pick.
Yeah.
It's great. Great death of a minor villainous.
Him still thinking that he outwitted him.
Right.
Like,
totally.
I switched the glasses. Ha ha ha! Dies mid laugh.
Yeah.
Like,
and I've like I said in the commentary too, I've enjoyed watching people try to guess what the twist is, what the actual clever thing is, and not being able to because it's just that clever.
Right.
Like, that's why it's so good. It's because you're like, oh my god, that's brilliant.
Yeah, you can't really predict that.
Yeah. But you also, it makes sense, and especially because we learn rather quickly that the Man in Black is Wesley, and we get some more exposition. We get him explaining to Buttercup that he was taken prisoner by the Dread Pirate Roberts, so this who we presume has killed him. But we learn this crazy kind of backstory with the Dread Pirate Roberts where actually he has passed on this name to multiple successors.
Right.
And now Wesley is the Dread Pirate. He's been sailing around learning all of these skills that he's now using.
Right.
And my big note here was like, I think this movie does exposition masterfully.
Yeah.
It's so good. Because there are multiple points in the movie where it's just telling you.
They're explaining.
Yeah,
this is what happened.
Right. Inigo explaining the thing with his father. Wesley explaining what happened in the meantime since he's been gone. It's just people telling you things. But it doesn't have that feeling of like, okay, get on with it.
Right.
Because one, it's fun. Like, it's good backstory that we want to hear anyway. And two, it's always happening in this kind of naturalistic way that makes sense for the characters, or it's happening while we're doing the business of going about the plot.
Right. So after he defeats Vizzini, he takes Buttercup, and she still doesn't recognize him, and he's, she's defending
totally
her.
Unrecognizable.
Yeah, that mustache really gets her. She's defending herself. She's saying, I don't love Humperdinck. I never loved him. Like, I will only ever love Wesley. And then you get the rolling down the hill bit where he's yelling, as you wish. And she's like, oh, my sweet Wesley. And so she rolls down the hill. They have their little reunion, and yeah, they head off into the fire swamp, and that's when he starts telling her, like, yes, I got captured, quote unquote, but then this is what happened to me. He's giving his backstory while they're still moving through the story. Like, the two of them are moving through the fire swamp and dealing with the fires and the sand pit and the ROUSs, and he's giving his little background. So it's still moving forward while he's just explaining to her what happened to him.
And it's all being delivered in a very charming way, too.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Where he's... another famous line where he's explaining that the Dread Pirate Roberts every night says, "Good night, Wesley, well done, sleep well, I'll mostly kill you in the morning." Which is 3 years he told me that, It's a fun thing that's happening just in the dialogue as well, which I think is really good. I think the biggest strength of this movie is probably the script. It's just brilliantly written, and it holds up completely.
And the actors do a great job with it.
Brilliant job with it. We were commenting a lot on this viewing of the facial expressions and the quick reactions that people gave to things are so good. I'm kind of shocked I don't see more reaction gifs of things from this movie. There's some I see, but like the one that's sticking out in my mind is they're on the boats heading towards the cliffs of Insanity. And Inigo points out to Vizzini, there's a boat following us. And Vizzini looks out and he goes, it's probably some fisherman. And his the
look on his face and his hands gesture.
Being like looking for any other explanation than
fine.
We're being followed, I think is great. It's like, it can't possibly be the thing I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
Love it. So now they're in the fire swamp.
Yeah.
We kind of hit on our major theme right before the fire swamp until right after the fire swamp, which is Wesley says, I'm alive. And Buttercup's like, why didn't you wait for me? She says, you were dead.
Yeah, somebody told me you were dead.
And he says, death cannot stop true love.
Yeah.
She says, I'll never doubt again. We go through the fire swamp. It looks they come out the other side, and then there's Prince Humperdinck and his men.
Yeah.
And they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And he's like, I won't surrender. Death first.
Yeah.
And Buttercup says, don't hurt him. You can have me.
If you promise to let him go.
So she basically shows, no, I don't believe in it to that point. Where
Right.
I don't think death can stop things.
But I do want to save you.
Right. Which I'm not blaming her for.
Sure.
That's
She's
fine.
kind of an idiot, but that's fine.
A lovable idiot.
Yeah.
Unlike Jenny from Forrest Gump, who we don't like.
Jenny's not lovable. No, I'm just kidding.
She doesn't deserve love.
We'll talk about her another time.
But the point is, 2 points. One, you do like Buttercup. She's not like the most fully developed character of all time. Not even, she's kind of a MacGuffin.
Truly, he loves her because she's hot.
Sure.
Sure. Let's be honest.
It's true. She does come around. I think an important thing in this movie is that she gets
there at the end.
Right. She does learn her lesson. She realizes this Prince Humperdinck guy, surprise, is not great.
Piece of shit.
And I believe in Wesley. She believes in true love at the end. That my true love will save me.
She's got an arc.
So there's something there that you can latch onto.
Yeah.
It is the Wesley story. He's the antagonist. The protagonist. He's the villain.
Yeah. He's the bad guy.
He's Prince Humperdinck. No. He's the hero. He's the person that you're rooting for in this movie.
So she gives him up. She's like, oh yeah, you're going to let him go if you take me. She believes that. And Prince Humperdinck is like, yes,
totally.
100%.
Totally, babe.
Swear to never hunt again in my life. And then he leans over to
torture and kill him.
He's like, yeah, get rid of him.
And Count Drew is like, totally. Got it.
We have another sort of knocking out moment, which a piece of trivia I saw on this is that Cary Elwes encouraged Christopher Guest to actually hit him, and it actually knocked him out, and he had a laceration on his head that he had to get fixed up.
Oh my god. So it's not just a gimmick. You can really knock somebody's lights out with that. Yeah. Hate that.
Yeah.
Although, I guess that's something to keep in mind in the future if I need to conk someone out.
So then Wesley is taken to another fun little set with another fun little character, which is the Pit of Despair.
Lots of cool sets.
Yeah. So he's in the Pit of Despair with the albino torture master guy.
I guess.
Which I also read a trivia on him is that he had such a bad time filming because he had to wear special contacts that he was allergic to. So he was in massive pain the whole time that he filmed. So much so that he never watched it afterwards because it gave him such bad memories.
Wow.
So that's kind of sad.
So not worth it for those contacts either. That I don't even notice.
I don't remember it at all.
Because it would be one thing if I was like, oh yeah, they gave him, pink or white contacts. I don't
remember.
I remember
he did a great job though. He was one of the facial expressions that we really thought was funny.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
He had great expressions.
He killed it, but
But that's unfortunate.
So Wesley's in the Pit of Despair, and Buttercup is kind of eventually catching on that Humperdinck is not really the best guy.
Right. And so from here we get again, things move fast.
It escalates real quick.
Right.
So
we get the framing device comes back where Grandpa comes in and says the king died. Prince Humperdinck marries Buttercup, and the kid's like, what? No way. Which of course you as the audience are also like, no way. So again, it's a good surrogate audience moment.
Yeah.
And more just great iconic lines. I don't know whose idea was to have the hag in there heckling.
Boo!
Boo!
The queen of slime! The Queen of Steel, the Queen of Two, Dressen's bow.
It's so good.
It is so good.
And she wakes up, and that's kind of like the turning point for her, where she's
kind of realizes.
Which, I like that. That's her own conscious being like,
something's wrong.
Yeah, I messed up.
Don't do this.
Right. Like, you had true love in your hands, and you gave it up.
Yeah.
And so she turns from this point and goes to Prince Humperdinck and says, I'll kill myself.
Yeah, she talks shit at him.
Right.
And he gets real upset.
Well, first she says, believe me, I'll be dead in the morning if you say I have to marry you. And he says, I can't cause you pain. Like, why don't we send letters out to sea and to the Dread Pirate Roberts, who I totally set free and let roam about, and she's kind of dim. She doesn't really get what's going on. But eventually she does. And eventually she says...
What does she tell him?
When I tell you you are a coward, it's only because you're the slimiest weakling ever to crawl the earth.
Right.
Which is a good...
That really pisses him off.
Which, sure,
He goes straight to the pit of despair and turns it up to 50, and we get
the torture device.
Not to 50! The animals scream. Wesley dies. And then, like, kind of in the middle of all this, we're getting the Thieves' Forest line.
Yeah. We're
part of the narrative.
Reuniting Fezzik and Inigo. So if we didn't have that, we'd be like, where do these guys come from?
Yes. Humperdinck is feeding to his, like... the guy who's in charge of, I don't know,
his right-hand man,
or
basically.
whatever.
His security guy.
He says, hey, someone's going to kidnap and kill...
Because we've discovered that all of this plot to have Buttercup killed and start a war is his idea.
From Humperdinck.
Because he really wants to fight a war.
So he's saying, hey, somebody's going to kill my bride. You need to clear out the Thieves' Forest, which we've never heard of before until this moment. And the guy's like, my spy network hasn't heard anything about this. And he's like, well, you need to get your brute squad together.
And we're like, Thieves' Forest, spy network, brute squad?
So then we cut to the forest where the brute squad is like getting rid of everybody in the Thieves' Forest. And that's how we reunite Fezzik and Inigo. And it's real quick. Again, it moves really fast. Fezzik and Inigo back together. Inigo is a drunkard. Like, doesn't know what's going on. Fezzik, like, rehabilitates him, basically.
Sobers him up.
And they're back together. And then this is when they hear the scream from Wesley. And what does Inigo say? I made this sound.
My heart made that sound the day my father was killed.
That's the man in black. They go to find him.
It's very thin.
So funny.
Very thin, the logic that brings them together. It's good that we got all this because, like I said, if we all of a sudden had those characters come back, we'd be like, what?
Yeah.
How did this happen exactly?
Yeah.
So that was good. It's also cool. I love the setup in the earlier fights with Inigo and the Man in Black, Fezzik and the Man in Black, that we see that Inigo is basically a good man and Fezzik is basically a good man because eventually they're going to be part of the team.
Right.
And we're all ready to root for them. We like these guys.
Right.
Even before they're really on the team. And now they're on the team. And they go and find the Pit of Despair.
Yep.
And they find Wesley.
They get Wesley out of there.
He's dead.
They see he's dead. And what does Inigo say?
The Montoyas have never taken defeat lightly.
Right. So they take a dead guy to the Miracle Man. They take him to Miracle
Again, this
Max.
fits in with my big reading of this, which is like, never give up on the thing you're devoted to. Like, even death can't stop it. It's literally what Wesley says to Buttercup. Death can't stop true love.
And that's what Inigo does,
and it's true for Inigo
too.
as well, yeah.
Yep.
Death can't stop my mission to kill the man who killed my father, who I love so much.
They take a corpse to Miracle Max, which is where we get some of our funniest stuff. Yep. So this is where we get Billy Crystal.
I made a joke in the commentary of his wife was played by Meg Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that she was interested in the role of Buttercup.
Really? Oh, okay.
So they would have been in the same movie, but not as romantic interests.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took note of this little bit of trivia is that Billy Crystal, who's Miracle Max, his improv was so funny that they had to take Cary Elwes and Rob Reiner off the set because they couldn't stop laughing at him.
I can believe that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because it's so funny.
I read that Billy Crystal and Carol Kane, who plays Miracle Max's wife, Valerie, they flew over together to do their scenes. And they were workshopping their lines and like improving their lines as they flew over, which I think is just
that's great.
So great.
I love that because they really killed it together.
Absolutely.
It was so funny.
They're a perfect old married couple they're just sick of each other's shit, but also are a good pair.
Yeah,
they're that kind of couple.
That was the most quotable scene, in my opinion, with the to blave.
You never had it so good.
To bluff.
That's where I learned what blave means.
Humpadink, humpadink, humpadink. And I'm not a witch, I'm your wife. Yeah. That's a common quotation in our household.
Something like 50% of the lines are just like great lines that are also very memeable. Like they apply in millions of situations.
The have fun storming the castle.
Yep, very good. And then soon after this, they bring Wesley and they revive him with the pill. And Wesley's like, what's going on? Inigo says, let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me sum up. Also very good.
I also took a note of some trivia from after, the scene where they're on the parapet and Wesley's coming back to
they're
life.
Reviving him.
So according to Elwes, on the first day of filming the scene where Inigo, Fezzik, and the mostly dead Wesley are on the parapet planning to storm the castle, director Reiner said, let's film the rehearsal and see what happens. Right after Fezzik said the line, I guess not very long, André let out an incredible fart that lasted at least 16 seconds by one count. And the noise of it was so loud that it shook the plywood set of the parapet and made the sound engineer take off his headphones. During this, Elwes looked over at André and swears he saw steam rising from his head. After the described symphony of flatulence was over, a stunned silence came over the entire area. Reiner recovered from this and asked, hey, André, are you okay? To which André replied, I am now, boss.
So basically the same scene that happened earlier where Wesley is being tortured to 50 and that inhuman scream, that was the fart. That was the fart on set.
André's fart.
Holy shit. That is wild.
Yeah. Anyway, they're on the parapet making their plan.
I'm sure that's kind of a tall tale, but I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, so they're like, we're going to go in. Inigo's like, I brought you back to life so you can help me storm the castle and get my revenge. And in return, you're going to go in there and stop Buttercup and Prince Humperdinck getting married. And more kind of plot contrivances happening here.
The cloak that he pulls out.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I'm kind of realizing about this movie is that there are... this is something I kind of already believed in anyway. Plot holes exist in every movie, and plot contrivances exist in every movie. But when it's a good movie, and it has a good script, and it has good characters, and it has all these other good elements, it's very easy to be like, whatever.
And when you're like, I feel like they were conscious of that.
Yes.
And he was like, I got a cloak. It fits so well.
Right.
When I tried it on at Miracle Max's, I stole it. Like, obviously, it's like, okay, they needed a way to get this cloak. This is the way we did it.
Yeah, definitely. But, I mean, there's definitely a question of, like, would it have been better if that had been set up ahead of time? Because I was just saying it's nice that we get this kind of story about the Thieves' Forest and Inigo being there, and he's there because that's what Vicini said to do. And you've got Fezzik on the Brute Squad because he's looking for a new job. So, these plot things are kind of coming together to bring them back together. You could have just had, like, Fezzik stumbling onto Inigo in the woods, but that would not have been as satisfying.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a way to have this work. But it works because of the charm. And it does. It's like a nod and a wink to you. It's like, just go with it. It's fine.
We understand.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also commented that their plan of storming the castle gate guarded by 60 men by invoking the legend of the Dread Pirate Roberts and lighting Fezzik's cloak on fire and all of that felt very RPG D&D to me.
Yeah.
Of like, this is a nonsense plan.
Yeah, like
but
you rolled Hail Mary that you got to go for.
But you rolled well on your intimidation check, so it worked out just fine. So I like that. Yeah. I like this little party. I like this little group that we've gotten together for this adventure. It's very fun. And
they get in. Fezzik pulls up the whatever it was. Portcullis. They get in there. The little redhead guy who's in charge of everything.
Kind of low-key our favorite guy in this
really
movie.
Funny. And they were like, give us the key. And he's like, I don't have a key. And
Inigo says very quietly, Fezzik, tear his arms off. Oh, you mean this key?
Oh, this key.
This guy has a very small role, this security chief gatekeeper guy, but he's
really funny.
He's really funny in the movie. So they get in. The wedding is happening. The wedding has completed,
ended, basically.
Yeah, they've gotten married. And this movie is very good about things seem hopeless. Over and over again, things go bad and seem like, how is it ever going to be fixed from here? And this bit in particular happens a lot. They get married. They weren't able to stop it. Inigo finds the Count, who runs away and then
gets hit with a sword.
Yeah, he gets the drop on Inigo and throws a dagger into his belly.
Yep.
And Inigo's like, I'm sorry, father, I failed you.
Yep.
So things go quite bad here. But that's only to make it feel that much more satisfying when things go right.
And then it wraps up super quick, I feel like.
Very quick and very satisfying. You've got... Inigo basically wins through sheer willpower, which it's interesting. Like, it's very satisfying, and I think it's because it fits the theme so well of like not giving up in the face of impossible odds for something that you truly are devoted to. Like, he gets stabbed in the gut and both shoulders, and he's just stands up and keeps fighting, and he wins. Wesley is incapacitated,
can barely walk,
fully,
can't stand hardly,
but stands up, raises his sword to Humperdinck, and says, "Drop your sword!" Like, just standing up in the face of this impossible odds. And our heroes get what they want. Hooray!
Yeah, Inigo manages to deliver his lines and kill Count Drew, and Wesley has snuck off somehow and ended up in Buttercup's bed, and
she didn't notice he was
keeps
there.
her from killing herself by telling her she has great boobs, basically. And
that works.
What insult does he give to Humperdinck?
You miserable vomitous mass.
Yeah. And then
lots of insults.
And then he scares him so badly that the little scene of him flipping his outfit and then sitting himself into the chair so they can tie him up. That's fun too.
Yeah.
And then it all wraps up. Then you get the most wonderful kiss in all of history.
All of kisses.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that is a nice ending. I said at the beginning you almost don't need the framing device, but the framing device does give it a perfect end. Because I think if they just ended with those two kissing, it's like, that's fine. But Grandpa leaving and the kid being like, "Can you come back and tell the story again tomorrow?" And he says, "As you wish." That, you can't beat that.
You also get the little, okay, so Grandpa's reading the story that Wesley and Buttercup are about to kiss, and then Grandpa's like, "You don't like kisses.
Right.
I'll leave this off." And the kid's like, "Well."
So even the kid gets a little bit of character development. It's very nice.
Fun.
Okay, so... Oh yeah, I had a little challenge for you. What are some of the movie's flaws?
Who cares?
Well, so I want to return basically to the question I posed at the beginning, which is like, for a person who didn't grow up with this movie, you're in 2023, you know of it, but you haven't watched it, you don't know that much about it. Mm-hmm. What is this movie like for that kind of person? Is it a good movie? How good is the movie for a person who's never seen it?
I think to them it would be good, not great. They wouldn't have the sort of attachment that we have. Maybe some of the visual things aren't as good to go.
Right.
But I think it holds up.
Yeah, I think I would mostly agree with that. There's some stuff that I feel like even as a kid, and maybe this is a weird retroactive memory thing. Even as a kid, I was like, I don't know about that. Like, the Man in Black goes to do his, like, double flip over that bar. It's very clearly just a bar on a set with, like, 2 handholds made in it. And when he lands, you can see the board, like, the springboard under him buckle. And there's stuff like that where even as a kid, I was like, man. So I can imagine as a person in 2023 seeing that being like, this looks very cheap.
Maybe so. But also, if you're a person in 2023, you're probably going to realize, like, this came out in, 87 or whatever. Like, all right. I'll give you a little grace there.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. My experience, because I really haven't shown this movie to anybody who hasn't seen it before, but I have shown old movies to people who haven't seen them before. Mm-hmm. And visuals tend to be sticking points for people who didn't watch the movie at the time. Because in my head, like, Star Wars, the original Star Wars, holds up really well. Mm-hmm. But I have had people watch it for the first time and they're like,
really?
A little bit to some of the effects.
Honestly, I feel like we're coming back around to, like, practical effects being more... I guess that's just to me, not necessarily to everyone, but practical effects seem more cool and interesting to me now.
Well, we've talked about it, I think in 2001 we talked about it, because it's just like, you watch it and you're like, how did they do this?
Right.
Like, it's kind of amazing. And we also talked about... I wonder if that was the same movie Samantha was talking about at Universal Studios, watching a stunt show, basically. People doing real stunts, like, from movies and stuff, and being amazed by it.
It might have been The Mummy.
I think so. And so, I mean, that stuff is cool. And I think, even though the visuals aren't always great, it does make up for it with real locations, real sets, and the actors doing the stunts, by and large. Which, if you are watching and you are paying attention to that, is really impressive and is very cool. The only other notes I took about if you're watching this for the first time, turn the captions on probably, because you'll be able to hear what André the Giant is saying. Because you probably will just be looking at the screen like, what?
What is he saying?
Yeah. So, that's a good idea. Some things feel a little bit too convenient, but... I think that's kind
of fun.
It's part of the fun.
It's got the charm.
Right. And the movie has like a wink and a nod. It knows it's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that, I think the framing device helps that too. Because if it were just a story and you didn't have that, it's a grandpa telling it to his kid, that might feel a little bit stretched too. But even that feels like just the grandpa being fun, maybe. Or,
that's true.
It does help.
Condensing things a little bit.
Speaking of which, condensing things, abridging things. This is based on a book.
Yes.
Which you have read.
Yes.
And I have read. But you read a lot younger than when I read it.
Yeah.
And you learned, and I confirmed this while we were doing our commentary track, you were like, I've only read the abridged version, where it cut out a lot of the boring nonsense. That's the only version, because the original book by William Goldman, he presents it as the recovered abridged version by S. Morgenstern. S. Morgenstern is completely fictional. It's all a fictional device. He wrote everything in the book. And when he's leaving these footnotes for you about, I cut this out, and this part was a bit boring, and you don't need to listen to this, that's the original version of the book. And so the movie, in adapting that, kept the meta-narrative idea, but redid it for the movie using the framing device of the grandpa and the kid. Yeah. Which is brilliant.
Yeah, I love that.
Stunningly brilliant.
Yeah.
To keep that essence and that feeling in a way that makes more sense for a movie than a book.
Yeah.
Because the book really plays on... did you read the Bartimaeus stuff? Okay, so the Bartimaeus, I think it's a trilogy, does a lot of the same stuff where there's lots of footnotes from the narrator that's happening as you're reading it. There's a lot of meta-narrative stuff. And if you take that out, it does change the spirit of the thing a little bit. So the fact that the script manages to keep that intact is really cool.
Yeah.
If you like the movie and you've never read the book, I would definitely recommend it.
The book is fun. I really love the book.
The one kind of weird thing about the book, which is also a meta-narrative, is that it ends with a preview chapter for the never-published sequel to The Princess Bride. It's called Buttercup's Baby, I think. And in the first chapter, Wesley Humperdinck catches up with them and kills Wesley.
Really?
And Buttercup is pregnant or something.
To me, that doesn't exist at all.
Well,
and to you, that could not exist also.
It's presented in the same way of like this over-the-top dramatic, like, and it just adds to the ridiculousness of this meta-narrative of like, there's a lost book and we only have one chapter from S. Morgenstern.
That's interesting. I don't remember that part at all.
Good to not include that in the movie. That's bad.
For sure. That'd be a real sad ending.
That's bad and pointless. But it is a funny little note to add on there.
That's interesting.
Ready for our final scores and recommendations?
Yeah.
All right. My score, I said, inconceivably nostalgic, inconceivably good. Because I do think nostalgia does play a large factor here.
Sure.
But I stand by this just being one of the greatest movies ever made.
My score is yes to 50 out of 50. 50 out of 50 for me. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Yes to 50. And basically, I mean, my score is the same as my recommendation. If you already like it, you don't need me to say anything about it. If you've never seen it, I would say if you're a fan of modern movies and like quippy, swashbuckling, adventure, light, fun, like witty dialogue, that kind of thing, and you haven't seen this movie, one, I don't know how you haven't seen it.
Right.
But this is the prototype. This is the best version of that everything else is trying to get to. Like, we liked The Mummy as kids because it felt like The Princess Bride. We liked Stardust because it felt like The Princess Bride.
Yeah. My recommendation is to anyone who's cool, anyone who has a pulse,
good taste,
anyone who has good taste,
right,
etc., etc.
If you got a huge cock,
if you don't like it, you're a fucking loser.
Virgins shouldn't watch this
for sure. If you don't get any pussy, you shouldn't watch.
Definitely not. Okay, I mean, I think that
sums it up.
Yeah, I mean, this is I think our highest rated movie that we've done. Which, I mean,
Pride and Prejudice.
Ooh. Me personally, Pride and Prejudice is a better movie.
Yeah.
But this one just holds such a special place in my heart.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well done. Good job, April.
Go team.
So if you got a huge penis, if you get tons of pussy, go out and watch The Princess Bride
You'll
today.
love it.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode for
Constantine.
That's right, baby.
Woo!